Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to boot the subscribe button, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, kicking off, we follow our MC as he has possession of the ball. With minutes to tie up the game, he is pressured into passing to a teammate only for them to whiff the shot. With the enemy gaining possession, Ryosuke Kira, the opposing team's star player, ends up scoring the last goal with a final score of 2-0 in favor of Kira. Walking out the stadium, Isagi envies Kira's position, not only winning the game for his team but also gaining the attention due to his skill. Walking home, he reminisces on his life as a soccer player. Regretting his final pass towards the end of the match, he cries in agony at the thought of losing the chance at nationals due to his weak ego. Heading home, he is surprised to have been invited to training camp. Not expecting much, he shows up only to run into Kira, who also got an invitation. After catching up, they both head into the building only to be struck by the overwhelming presences of star soccer players within their age group. Introducing himself as Ego Jinpachi, Ego informs the 318 and under players in this room that he intends on forming the ultimate team. The only twist is that the whole team will be composed of strikers. At first, everyone believes that the formation of a team as such would be terrible, but using the world's best strikers as inspiration, Ego is able to motivate every single person in the room to join his BlueLock project. Entering room Z, Isagi is greeted by various strangers and Kira asking him to wear the proper attire. The first test immediately begins with Ego explaining that they will be playing a game of hot potato, but instead of a potato, the player that last made contact with the soccer ball will be kicked out of the project. With Gurimu, Igarashi takes possession of the ball, missing some shots. At first, he attempts to tag a sleeping player only for the sleeping person, Meguru Bashira, kicking Igarashi in the face for taking advantage of him whilst napping. Stepping in, Rensuke Kunigami scolds Bashira for being so violent only for Igarashi to tag him whilst he's being distracted. Now mad Kunigami shoots a powerful shot at Igarashi only for him to use Isagi as a meat shield. With the clock running low, Isagi is given an opportunity to tag the fallen Igarashi. Just then an overwhelming feeling overcomes him. Not wanting to target such a weak opponent, Isagi changes directions, running towards Kira, his rival. Ecstatic at Isagi's ideals, Bashira takes possession of the ball only to at the last second send it back to Isagi, who elegantly tags Kira. Not convinced at his loss, Kira is informed that the room and time given is supposed to simulate the penalty area, with the time meant to give each person in the room opportunity to gain possession and tag someone similar to time someone would spend in the penalty area. Ego adds on that someone without the drive to do anything they can to win doesn't belong in the project. Kira frustratingly leaves. Ego then informs everyone the 11 remaining players are now going to be training and sleeping together. Isagi, heading to the cafeteria, realizes that his group is the lowest of them all, and the lower the ranking, the worse off the meals. Unable to sleep that night, Isagi decides to play one-on-one with Bashira. With them beginning, Bashira reveals that ever since he was young he has had a monster guiding him. With each play he is able to easily dribble past Isagi with his crazy footwork. Realizing their difference in skill, Isagi is fired up to learn and grow. Heading back to their rooms, the 11 players are informed of a 5 vs 5 round-robin tournament, noting that the BlueLock project houses 5 facilities, with each facility having 5 teams, with Isagi being in Team Z the lowest. All 5 teams will face each team once, with the top 2 teams moving on along with the top player from the remaining 3 teams. Changing scenes, we see a young prodigy, Atashi Sei, gain interest in the BlueLock project as well. With the first match beginning, facing off Team X, Isagi soon realizes the chaos created from every player wanting possession of the ball. Charging in, Baru Shuei is able to break free, with the ball, out of the swarm of players. Dribbling past, in between and over Team Z, Baru turns a 0 to a 1 for their team. With each point Baru scores, Team Z begin to panic, believing that their individual self will be able to score only to be outnumbered and lose possession. With the score being 5-0 in favor of Baru's team, Isagi and Bashira plan to work together. Kicking off, Isagi rushes down the midline whilst Bashira holds back to lodge the ball to Isagi. Right when Isagi has sight of the goal, the king of the field Baru darts towards him. Running out of ideas, he sees an image of the field in his head. All of a sudden he passes to Kunigami, ignoring everyone else. With a perfect pass, Kunigami sends the ball directly into the goal, scoring the first point for Team Z. With no time remaining, Isagi and gang head back into the locker room, concluding that an ego as a striker is essential, but there has to be moments where they suppress such ego in order to make a goal. Having faced defeat, Team Z began figuring out strengths and weaknesses of individual players when playing together. Heading to the cafeteria, Isagi greets Kunigami, who shares his stake with him, noting that each goal is rewarded with a stake, and as Isagi starting the next match against Team Y, Team Z attempt to play on each other's strength, giving each player an opportunity to score whilst the team plays around them. With the game going nowhere, Isagi notes that the opposing team's star player, Hibiki Okawa, is not moving at all. Just then Nico, on the enemy team, gains possession of the ball. With a straight shot, Nico sends the ball to Okawa, who is already deep in enemy territory. With barely any defenders, Okawa scores the first goal for Team Y. With a goal scored, Team Y simply passes and dribbles the ball around, attempting to run out the clock with no intentions of scoring. With Isagi's team almost scoring a goal, a penalty is given to them. Gathering in the penalty area, Isagi has a premonition. Acting on instincts, he dashes towards his own goal. Right on cue, Isagi figures out the brains of the opposing team, being Nico. Marking Nico, Isagi is able to gain possession and ultimately assisting. The flexible Jin Gagamaru is able to score. With minutes to spare, the entire enemy team ditches a defensive play. Realizing Team Y only needs to score, Isagi follows Nico only to realize that he'll not be the one scoring. Sniffing out possible outcomes, Isagi is able to smell the most likely goal, and that is a pass to Okawa. Intercepting the goal, Isagi is able to strike the ball, scoring for his team. Completely in a trance, Isagi mocks Nico's mentality, having such a weak ego, passing the ball when he could have scored. Celebrating their win, Isagi chats privately with Hyoma Chigiri, learning of an injury in his past that has restrained him from enjoying soccer. Jealous of Isagi's progress, Chigiri storms off. The next day during practice, the ranks of each player is updated based on their previous games. Having the most impact in the past games, Isagi is ranked first in his team. Unwilling to fall behind, the teams follow Isagi. Studying their next opponent, Wataru Kuon interrupts, having spent too much time in the sauna. He's exhausted. With their next opponents being Team W, Isagi is introduced to the twins Junichi and Keisuke Wanima. Greeting Chigiri as a failed prodigy, the twins show off their unrivaled teamwork. Reading and cutting them off, Isagi is able to send a pass over to Kuon, who scores. With the next point, Kunigami is able to wrestle possession to Kuon, who scores once again. With Isagi's team gaining a penalty, Bashira is able to lodge the ball to Kuon, who has an insane jump, headbutting the ball into goal. At halftime, Team Z is in the lead with 3 goals to Team W's 0 goals. Starting the second half, Kuon is distracted, leaving an opening for the twins to steal and score. With Kuon possessing the ball, he passes it to Isagi only for it to be once again stolen and scored by the twins. Suspiciously, Isagi catches Kuon smiling. With Isagi having possession, he is interrupted by one of the twins. Passing it into the penalty zone, Kuon fails to defend, allowing the opposing team to even the scores. With Isagi putting the pieces together, it's revealed that Kuon had fed the enemy team all of his team's stats and plan on moving to the next stage as the best player in the button 3 teams after the round-robin tournament, purposely throwing away the game knowing he will be ranked higher than the rest, having the most goals overall. With the score even, Kuon informs Isagi's team it'll now be a 11-9 game, with him switching sides and purposely passing to the enemy. Outnumbered Team W scores, making it 4-3, and with the ball being passed to Chigiri, he is hopelessly forced to surrender its ownership to the opposition in fear of injuring himself once again. Completely desperate, Isagi demands Chigiri get out of his way. Awakening Chigiri's ego, Chigiri decides to let loose, ignoring the possibilities of another injury. Dashing down the outer wing, Isagi notices an accelerating Chigiri and passes. Accelerating faster and faster with every step taken, Chigiri is able to outrun all defenders and score, making it 4-all. With the game ending in a draw, Kuon is bashed as Team W blames him for their draw. Running off, Kuon attempts to rope in Team V, the final opposing team. With no interest, Team V's 3 leaders leave, ignoring Kuon. Cutting to Team V, we see Reo Mikage hails from a prestigious family, with one day meeting Sashiro Nagi. Noticing Nagi has immense hidden talent, they both decide to play soccer together. Cutting to Kuon, we see him refusing to play in the upcoming match, believing he will still come on top as Isagi's team has no chance against the unbeatable Team V. Changing to Isagi's perspective, we see him asking the king of the court Baro for advice. Upon losing one-on-one to Baro, Isagi realizes that a formula is needed to ensure consistent goals. With the match against Team V beginning, Isagi begins having each member utilize their strength to pass the big three on the opposing team. With Gagamaru missing the final hit, the opposing team now has possession of the ball. Completely shocked at Team Z's plays, Reo sends the ball across. Attempting the same pattern, Team Z has the ball stolen by Reo only to once again have Nagi score a hat-trick. Attempting to catch the enemy off guard, Shigiri uses his speed to bolt down the field only to be caught by Zantetsu Tsurugi. Stealing the ball, Zantetsu runs along the edge only to fire it from such a distance, making the goal 3-0 in favor of the opposition. Completely hopeless, we see Bashira let his instincts take over. Using his clever footwork, Bashira dribbled past all defenders and Mangos to make the score 1-3 for Team Z. Aware of Reo, Jingo Raichi makes it his goal to mark and restricts his play, even managing to wrestle over possession to Kunigami. Fired up, Kunigami gets creative. Being out of his shooting range, he improvises, managing to obtain another goal before halftime. After halftime, Shigiri tests a theory. Kicking the ball out of reach for both Shigiri and Zantetsu, who is marking Shigiri. Both accelerate with Shigiri confirming that Zantetsu is only initially faster than him, but at top speed Shigiri easily beats Zantetsu. Seeing Reo despair at the tough opponents, Nagi takes over, surpassing everyone and scoring from such a tight place, with Team V now in the lead with 4 against Team Z's 3. Isagi inspired passes to Shigiri, having him beat Zantetsu. Isagi marks Nagi from intercepting his play. With the ball deflecting off the post, Kunigami scores beautifully just as Isagi planned, tying up the scores as 4-all. Flashing to Kuon's past, we see his betrayal stems from an unrelenting urge for becoming the best, even playing dirty. Cutting back, we see Team V counter. With Zantetsu striking the ball to Nagi across the field, Isagi realizes that they're in danger, unable to reach or defend Nagi. Just then Kuon tackles, with Reo attempting to score the free kick, the keeper saving the ball, Zantetsu being marked and Gagamaru protecting against Nagi's lightly tapping the ball. Isagi is ultimately able to obtain possession. In a split second, Team Z switches gear. With Isagi noting down the people beside him, he begins to piece together a goal. With Bashira possessing the ball, Bashira reads Isagi's intentions and passes to him only to be challenged by the monstrous Nagi. Realizing he's been holding back, he's able to beat Nagi to the ball by avoiding a touch and instead striking it directly, scoring and ending the game 5-4 in favor of Team Z. With Isagi's team overcoming their strongest opponent, the team jumps in joy. Kunigami welcomes Kuon back to the team, having stopped Nagi from scoring. But before this, Richie gives Kuon a stern beating. With all the matches over, we see Wanima from Team W, Nico from Team Y and Baru from Team X, all proceed whilst their teams are eliminated. With Isagi's gang celebrating that night, Bashira and Isagi chat about how far they've come, with Isagi proud of the weapons he's created, but Isagi still realizes that at any moment he can be eliminated. Greeting Nico in the cafeteria, Nico reveals that thanks to Isagi, he's become more egotistical, prioritizing his goals over the team, hence the reason he's still here. Declaring Isagi as his rival, Nico heads off, whilst Bashira and Isagi return to the others, who've all knocked out. With the next day arriving, Ego announces that this building will have to train their physical abilities for a whole week, in preparation for facing the other 4 higher buildings. Having endured the Hell Week, the gang head to the next test, but are shocked to see only players in Building 5. Ego reveals that there were never 5 buildings, but only one, and that the whole 4 buildings filled with stronger players was all a facade, to motivate players, striving to reach imaginary players who they envisioned were superior to them. Immediately announcing the next test, Ego declares that players who've been relying on others will have a tough time. With the test starting, everyone is hesitant, all but one. Atashi Rin volleys a slow falling ball, only to kick another fast ball at it, having both collide. With everyone shocked, Rin heads into the testing facility. Having left an impression on everyone entering the test room, Isagi is given a ball and presented with a dummy. Deemed the BlueLock goalkeeper, a circle appears around Isagi, growing smaller, representing the remaining time Isagi has. Additionally, this test is meant to test penalty kicks. Having struck the ball at a decent angle, Isagi is amazed that the hologram was able to intercept it. Realizing that he must score 100 goals within 90 minutes, Isagi realizes this particular test is gauging whether a person has the necessary skills to score alone. Welcoming the challenge, Isagi realized the ball had spawned from the left this time, and the goal had also moved. Assessing the space around him, he's able to efficiently move towards the ball, whilst determining an optimal route to the goal. With these pieces, Isagi is able to score. Repeating such a pattern, Isagi is impressed as this whole test simulates possible scenarios in a game. With Isagi consistently scoring goals, he's greeted with the second level of the test, adding several obstacles to simulate players. With the difficulty shooting through the roof, we see Ego proud of this state-of-the-art training facility, meant to get rid of the weak people, relying on others to cruise through BlueLock. Back with Isagi, we see him able to overcome the additional obstacles. By factoring in the positions of these obstacles, he's able to adapt his strike. Upon reaching 60 goals, Isagi is met with the final max level of difficulty. With each of the obstacles moving randomly, to simulate player movement, Isagi is met with the ball appearing faster, with different spins. Unable to control the random ball, and unable to break past the moving obstacles, Isagi once again must evolve. Adding a final piece to his previous formula, Isagi realizes that controlling the ball is hard, so instead striking it upon first contact will be the best, a direct shot. Greeting Bashira, everyone is instructed to form groups of 3. Isagi notes that Reo and Nagi are probably waiting for Zantetsu, so he should wait for Kunigami or Chigiri, whoever shows up first. Just then, Nagi approaches Isagi, offering him to join Nagi's team. With Reo surprised, Nagi explains that Isagi by far had the most impact in their previous match, but sadly Isagi declines, as he wants to be with Bashira. Knowing this, Nagi offers to join their team, which forces Reo to voice his concerns, but Nagi replies that he wants to grow stronger, and since he's lost playing with Reo, he wants to see how he'll do playing with others. Blaming himself for the defeat, Reo doesn't put up a fight. With Isagi realizing this is an opportunity to learn from a genius, he openly welcomes Nagi, forming their 3-man team. Heading to the next stage, Bashira questions whether Nagi notices Rio's saddened face, but Nagi reassures them it's for the greater good. Entering the next room, the 3 are shocked to be the second 3-man team, with the first being Itachi Rin's team, forcing the 2 to clash. Back in the previous room, Kunigami and Chigiri have both passed the first test, and have decided to form a team together. Just then Ego informs everyone on the rules for the 3 versus 3. First team to score 5 will advance. The winning team will steal a player in front of the losing team, before advancing. This new 4-man team will face another 4-man team, with the winner stealing another player from the losing team, forming a 5-man team and passing the exam. Any losing teams will continue to clash, but a 1-man team will be disqualified, leaving BlueLock. Revealing the order in which the players completed the previous test, with Isagi questioning if they should challenge Rin's team, Rin insults his teammates, as he states that the other 2 are there to just fill the vacant spots. Continuing, Rin mentions how he is aiming to overthrow his brother, Itachi Sei, and that BlueLock is simply a stepping stone for him. With such a powerful player in front of him, Isagi is overcome with joy, challenging Rin to the 3 versus 3. With Rin's team deemed the red and Isagi's team the white, the 2 teams suit up, with Isagi brimming with excitement, wanting to test his strength with the top 3. Passing the ball to Bashira, Bashira is able to dribble past Tokimitsu, with his clever footwork. Faking a shot to Isagi, Nagi receives the ball, evading Ryu, and tapping it to Isagi. With a perfect pass, Isagi is able to score a goal. With Bashira and Nagi complementing Isagi's shot, Rin declares that the 3 are not worth his time, immediately kicking the ball from the halfway line, and scoring. Having equalized the scores, Rin declares that soccer is his life, and he'll gladly die for it. With Bashira passing the ball to Nagi, Aryu is ready this time, intercepting the pass, which wound up in Tokimitsu's possession. Attempting to control the ball, Tokimitsu loses it to Isagi, but Aryu is able to wrap around Isagi and score a goal. With Bashira realizing that Nagi is marked by Aryu, he takes matters into his own hands, dribbling past Tokimitsu, but this time he's different. Using his anxiety as fuel, he charges at Bashira, able to wrestle possession, and even running through Isagi, scoring a goal, with pure physical strength. Beginning to despair, from their powerlessness, Isagi is brought back, listening to Bashira's and Nagi's plan. Deciding to stick close together, and passing in a triangular position, Isagi spots an opening, dashing towards it but is easily marked by Rin, who had seen through Isagi's plans. With Nagi marked, he's unable to see Bashira's pass, but predicts his teammates' movements, controlling the ball and scoring a goal. With the three creating a chemical reaction, they celebrate, only to realize that Rin is kicking from the halfway line again. Attempting to predict Rin's pass, everyone is shocked at Rin's ego, as scores a goal, having no intentions of passing. With the score 4-2 in Rin's favor, Isagi calls for the ball, determined to score, but realizes that Rin was several steps ahead of him. Intercepting the ball, Rin goes on the offense, easily maneuvering past Nagi and Bashira. Isagi is hopeless to watch as Rin scores the final goal, ending the match. Having won, Rin decides that Bashira would be best for their team. Surprised, Bashira accepts this decision, demanding that he won't wait for Isagi, wanting to see how he'll grow whilst Bashira is gone. With Nagi and Isagi waiting in the loser's room, Isagi begins to break down, realizing how he was by far the weakest member in the game. Nagi begins to berate Isagi's attitude, mentioning how Reo would never look so pathetic, but the two realize they've been relying on others, with Nagi relying on Reo and Isagi relying on Bashira. Squashing their little feud, they wait for the next losing team. Seeing Baru and Naruhaya enter, Isagi learns that Baru was able to score 4 goals by himself, but ended up losing, with the winning team taking Hajime Nishioka, the supposed Messi of BlueLock. With Nagi and Baru bickering, they each decide to rest, before deciding if they should play each other. Back at their dorms, Nagi questions Isagi for not jumping at the opportunity to face another strong opponent, Baru. Isagi surmises that, because they had lost Bashira, whose was the key person, that was able to pass to Nagi and Isagi, they are both currently useless, as Isagi's direct shot and Nagi's traps, into strikes, are both skills that can only be executed with perfect passes. With Nagi drifting off, Isagi ponders on how to improve. The next day, the two are severed, mediocre at best meals, whilst searching for possible, weaker opponents. With cutting to the chase, Naruhaya reveals offers to face Isagi, as he and Isagi both know that no other team will accept them, as having Baru and Nagi as an opponent would obviously mean defeat. This means that the only option is to have their two teams fight, and for Isagi and Naruhaya to decide who's weaker out of the two of them. Taking Naruhaya up on his offer, Isagi and Nagi immediately begin training, deciding that Nagi will mark the selfish King Baru, and Isagi will take on the mysterious Naruhaya. Cutting to Naruhaya, we see him forced to listen to Baru's orders, praying that he'll be able to continue in BlueLock. With the day arriving, Nagi has the ball, attempting to dribble past Baru. Insulted by Nagi's pathetic dribbling, Baru is able to steal the ball, running into his range to score. With Naruhaya following after Baru, Isagi is helpless to watch, as Baru is able to score from further than before, having grown whilst in BlueLock. With Isagi marked by Naruhaya, Isagi notices Nagi's aura, forcing him to pass the ball. Having given Nagi a terrible pass, Baru insults Isagi, but is surprised when Nagi is able to monstrously adapt to Isagi's pass, easily passing Baru and scoring. Realizing Nagi is developing at a rapid rate, Baru attempts to dribble past Isagi and Nagi, ignoring Naruhaya's help. Outnumbered, Isagi is able to steal the ball, passing it to Nagi. Attempting to mark Nagi, Naruhaya witnesses Nagi continue to evolve, as he's able to predict the ball's movement without even glancing at it, scoring. With Baru pissed, he kicks the ball from the halfway line, but Isagi notices it will fall short, chasing after it. Just then Naruhaya cuts him off, controlling the ball, and passing it back to Baru to score. With Isagi having possession, Naruhaya states that Isagi is inferior to him, distracting Isagi long enough to wrestle over possession. With Naruhaya scoring a goal, Isagi realizes that his shooting skills are superior to Naruhaya's, but Naruhaya's movements surpass Isagi's. It's a battle of who can overcome their limitations first. Digging deep, Isagi realizes that he doesn't have a current weapon to overcome the movement, but vows to keep searching. Attempting to dribble against Naruhaya, one-on-one, Isagi ends up relying on Nagi again, as Nagi easily scores. Realizing that his current mentality is restricting his growth, Isagi starts from square one, breaking himself down. With Baru possessing the ball, he states he's perfected the halfway shot, kicking it towards the top right of the goal. Sadly, Nagi predicts this, intercepting it, which ends up in Isagi's possession. Controlling the ball, Isagi fails to notice the approaching Naruhaya, as he's able to wrestle over the ball, moving towards the goal. With Nagi blocking Naruhaya's path, he's forced to pass to Baru, scoring a goal, making it 4-3 in Baru's favor. Blaming himself for not keeping track of Naruhaya, Isagi realizes that Naruhaya had made it his purpose of identifying people's blind spots, and intentionally moving into them to avoid being seen. This would explain how Isagi was unable to keep track of Naruhaya. Having discovered the final piece to his formula, Isagi realizes that Rin had been taking advantage of his blind spot as well. With Nagi equalizing the score as 4-all, Isagi begins to rebuild his mindset. With Nagi asking Isagi to focus, he's reminded of Isagi's monstrous tendency to adapt and evolve. Flashing back to Naruhaya's past, we see him come from a poor family, with his siblings coming up with different ways to become rich. Forcing everyone to smile in these dark times, swearing to make a living from soccer, we cut back to the present, as Baru attempts the halfway shot. Taunted, Baru changes the corner to top left, but falls short to the goalkeeper. With a loose ball, Naruhaya attempts to overcome his shortcomings, copying Isagi's direct shot, but pales compared to Isaga's strength and accuracy. With Nagi getting the rebound, he and Isagi go on the offense. Realizing that copying someone's skill and adapting it to suit themselves is completely normal, just like Naruhaya had just done. Isagi begins to break down Naruhaya's skill. Marked by Baru, Isagi waits for the perfect moment. Isagi dashes into Barris' blind spot. Prompting Baru to shift his weight, Isagi reverses his momentum, dashing in the opposite direction, and buying him enough time to score. Celebrating the win, Isagi attempts to comfort Naruhaya, even considering picking him over Baru, but decides to aim higher, thanking Naruhaya for allowing him to grow. Back with Kunigami and Chigiri, we see the two struggle to find a third member, but upon seeing a saddened Reo, having been recently dumped by Nagi, the two invite Reo to their team. With Baru officially a member of the team, he begins to demand the best bed in the dorm, which Nagi is opposed to. With Baru and Nagi bickering over preferences, Isagi is caught in the crossfire, attempting to de-escalate the situation. With Baru cleaning up their fight, Isagi notes Baru's strict rules he upholds when it comes to keeping the room neat. Knowing that the three will have to work together, Isagi states he'll get to know Baru, in order to create a chemical reaction between the three. The next morning, Nagi and Isagi witness Baru's morning training. Surmising that it would be a waste to just watch, the two join in, attempting to work out what is in Baru's mind. Cutting to Ego, we see him and Anri, with Hiratoshi questioning Ego's slow and meticulous plan. Hiratoshi asks if the sponsors should go back to their old ways of scouting and sponsoring geniuses. Replying, Ego questions Hiratoshi's definition of a genius, and how they compare to someone who has honed their craft over time. Wrapping up, Ego mentions that the goal of BlueLock is to artificially create and mold geniuses, which get Hiratoshi fired up, demanding that Ego back up his claims. Back with Isagi and Nagi, they return to their dorm, witnessing Baru steal the best bed, but lets him off as he cleans up the room. The next day, Isagi chats with Baru, attempting to form a connection with him. Realizing that Baru is a solo player, Isagi states that he can help Baru grow even stronger, as long as they work together. Ignoring Isagi's words, Isagi heads for the bath, running into Kunigami. Catching Kunigami up on what had transpired, Chigiri joins them, with the two punishing Isagi for not teaming up with them. With Nagi and Baru fighting nearby, Nagi greets Reo, but is swiftly ignored, deeming that he'll crush Nagi. Hearing these words, Chigiri challenges Isagi, who gladly accepts their challenge. Rehashing their game plan, Isagi ends up wondering who would be best for their team, reasoning that Chigiri's speed would make an excellent additional attack option. But Baru wants Kunigami for his physical endurance, and Nagi wants his best friend, Reo. Similar thing transpires with Kunigami's team, as we cut to Rin's team, who struggle to find opponents willing to face them in a 4 vs 4. With Isagi's match starting, we see Baru with the ball. Marked by Kunigami, we see Baru unable to break past Kunigami. Isagi realizes that Kunigami is able to keep Baru in check, by applying force when Baru moves close to the goal, but allows Baru to move free, when he moves away from the ball. With Isagi observing Ryo's movements, he fails to intercept a pass to Chigiri, who lets loose, leaving Nagi in the dust, and scoring the first goal. Realizing that Kunigami's team is a perfect balance, Isagi can't help but get fired up, against such a powerful opponent. Taking into account each person's blind spots, and the positioning of every player, Isagi sends the ball to Baru, as he's marked by Reo. Waiting for the perfect time, Isagi loses Reo, envisioning possible goals, but sadly Baru once again refuses to pass the ball, and ends up losing it to Kunigami. Just like that Kunigami score, making it 2-0 in favor of Kunigami. Having seen Baru's selfish acts, Nagi attempts to reason with Baru but is completely shut off, as Baru refuses to help others score. With Isagi realizing that he can't picture a possible goal with Baru, he passes to Nagi, who's marked by Chigiri. Nagi is able to outsmart the speedster, by changing his direction, making Chigiri's acceleration useless, and scoring a goal. Realizing that there is synergy between Nagi and Isagi, Isagi searches for a way to include Baru, once again attempting to reason with him. But Baru once again refuses to listen to Isagi, calling him a donkey for trying to boss the king around. Chatting to Nagi, the two realize they'll just have to win by themselves. With Reo possessing the ball, he is able to easily pass Isagi, as he's overall a talented player, able to understand Chigiri and Kunigami's strengths and weaknesses, and synergize with the two. Attempting to catch up, Isagi observes Reo pass the ball to Chigiri. With Nagi taunting Chigiri, Nagi is ignored, as the ball is passed back to Reo. Seeing the perfect opportunity to steal, Baru and Isagi are both denied, as Kunigami pushes through, headbutting the ball, and scoring. Completely at a loss for words, Isagi, but if he wants to win, he'll have to adapt, realizing that it would be best to let Baru do his thing, and then devour his plays. Realizing that Nagi is being pinned by Chigiri and Reo, Isagi moves in Baru's direction, drawing the defenders away from Nagi. Right when there is enough space, Isagi barely weaves the ball to Nagi, but wounds up, double-teamed by Chigiri and Reo. With Baru still marked by Kunigami, Nagi is able to spot Isagi, having used his teammates to take up everyone's attention. He's able to hide in Baru's shadow. Appearing as a speck of light, Nagi possessed to Isagi, who's able to roam freely, hitting a direct strike and scoring a goal. With everyone sensing Isagi's monstrous aura, Isagi taunts Baru, demanding that he not get in their way. With Reo passing the ball to Chigiri, Chigiri sends it to Kunigami. Fired up from Isagi's insult, Baru is able to wrestle Kunigami for the ball. Once again refusing to pass to Nagi, Baru is double-teamed, and loses the ball, but Isagi had been waiting, having anticipated everything. Refusing to allow Isagi control the ball, Chigiri rushes at Isagi, who calmly passes to Nagi, scoring. Having done nothing, Shirogir aims to redeem himself, outrunning Nagi by keeping the ball moving, and even outmaneuvering Baru, who attempted to tackle Chigiri. With no defenders, Chigiri scores. With Baru planted on the ground, we flash back into his past, learning that all his life, people around him had complimented and adored him. Realizing that no one would be able to match his skills, he would take scoring into his own hands, eventually losing love for the game. What he did love was ripping away others' love for the sport, by showing them how insignificant and outmatched they are, compared to Baru. Back in the present, Baru is fed up, stealing the initial passing to Reo. Isagi attempts to intercept, but is rejected as Reo punts the ball into the center. Having seen an opportunity to score, Baru dashes towards the ball, but realizes Chigiri is on his tail. About to be outclassed by the speedster, Baru feels Isagi's aura, forced to pass to someone for the first time. With a direct shot, Isagi evens the score as 4-all. With Baru's ego completely shattered, Isagi and Nagi discuss how they'll defend the next point. Nagi questions whether they should consider Baru as a defender, but Isagi cuts in, stating that Baru is completely useless as a dethroned king. With Ryo possessing the ball, he notes that Isagi and Nagi are positioned in a way to restrict passes to Chigiri. Having read Ryo's mind, Ryo is forced to pass to Kunigami, who also runs into the same issue, forced to pass back to Ryo. With no other option, Ryo attempts to drive by Isagi, but holds back, faking to draw Isagi out of position and away from Chigiri. Having made enough space, Ryo demands Chigiri run, kicking the ball towards him. With Chigiri accelerating in one direction, Nagi surprises Ryo, charging in the opposite direction, planning to intercept the ball mid-path. Having barely made it to the ball, Nagi is unable to fully control it, letting the ball run loose and into Barra's possession. Seeing Isagi and Nagi switching to offense, Baru sees various goals if he passes to Nagi or Isagi. But right before he does, an overwhelming feeling consumes him, refusing to allow him to pass to others. Having tasted defeat for the first time, Baru chooses to evolve if he wants to continue in BlueLock. Keeping the ball, Baru fakes a pass, instead moving off at an angle and continuing to dribble towards the goal at lightning speeds. With Isagi making himself open for a pass, Ryo attempts to thwart the pass, but is shocked. With Chigiri dashing in as a last hope, he realizes that Baru is hiding in Isagi's shadow, using Isagi to conceal his movements, devouring Isagi's plays. Passing Chigiri, Baru smashes the ball and wins the game. With Baru demanding Isagi apologize, he proclaims that he is still the king, as Nagi jumps onto Baru and Isagi. Learning of how Baru developed his new chop dribble technique, we see Ego explain how humans in their most desperate times are able to evolve, as long as they are able to acknowledge their weaknesses and yearn for victory. With the game ending, the three ponder who to choose from Kunigami's team. Wondering if they should take Kunigami for his physical prowess and defense, or Ryo for his coordination and adaptability, Isagi reasons that forming a balanced team will only get them so far. As the goal of these matches is to create chemical reactions, just like how Baru and Isagi devoured each other, Isagi reasons that they need another person who is as crazy and risky as their current lineup. Needing another weapon, they settle on Chigiri for his speed and pacing throughout their match. Reluctant to accept, Chigiri ultimately gives in, reminding Kunigami to chase after him, as he and Kunigami still plan on defeating Isagi themselves. As Nagi approaches Ryo, who is clearly upset, claiming that Nagi has long forgotten their promise. But Nagi gets annoyed, questioning Ryo if he's even worthy of being on the same team as him, and that Ryo is bland, compared to the others. Before parting ways, Isagi gives Ryo some advice, stating that he should strive to be the one to pick his teammates, and not wait to be picked by others. Flashing back, we see a young Bashira telling his mother about the monster that follows him when he's playing. Happy to see Bashira grow, his mother states that the monster is Bashira's own little quirk, and that he should embrace it. Back at the dorm, Isagi and the others are cooling down, each occupying themselves. With the newly added Chigiri, Isagi notes the increased messiness of the room, all whilst Baru demands that the Nagi and Chigiri clean after themselves. Taking a break, Baru accompanies Isagi to the cafeteria. As the two indulge on their well-earned steaks, Baru puts Isagi on edge, glaring at him. Asking Isagi about how he sees soccer, Isagi reveals his weapons and awareness during the game, which surprises Baru. But Baru, adding that Isagi wasn't wrong for pointing out his flaws, Baru warns Isagi to not underestimate him, now that he's tasted defeat. With Isagi welcoming Baru's challenge, we cut to Nagi, who is watching other world-class footballers play, wanting to try out their moves for himself. Impressed with Nagi's nonchalant attitude, Chigiri reveals his leg to Nagi, which garners Chigiri some sympathy. As Isagi thinks about the potential of his current team, he re-enters the dorm only to see it much messier than how he left it. Following Bashira, we see him continually bested by Rin, but this only motivates him more. Having gotten a little serious, Rin points out Bashira's major flaw, stating that Bashira is always looking for others to pass to, and not looking to score himself. Flashing back, we see a young Bashira grow up with the game of soccer, relying on the thrilling sensation of dribbling. Eventually, everyone around him grew tired of playing with Bashira, which led to him fighting and not getting along with others. Comforting Bashira, his mother encourages Bashira to not listen to those who never experienced his love for soccer, and instead he should dive deeper and embrace this new feeling. Since then, Bashira has been playing with this monster. Even in future games, Bashira is aware of the monster's presence on the pitch. But when he passes the ball to the monster disappears and no real teammate can actually keep up with Bashira's mentality. Yearning for someone who can keep up, Bashira continues to watch professionals play, and attempt to apply it to his real games, but no success. One day, whilst feeling ostracized and questioning if he's weird, Bashira receives an invitation to the BlueLock project. Dreaming of his favorite players, Bashira is awoken, in the same room with other strikers. Seeing Isagi's resolve that day, Bashira realizes that the monster that he's been searching for had picked Isagi, and ever since having finished their training, Rin and Bashira head out, only to run into Isagi, who challenges their team to a match, which they gladly accept. With the match about to start, the players decide on who they're going to mark. Ryu is seen praising Chigiri's luscious hair, hence the two will be marking each other. Baru gets pissed at Tokimitsu's negative demeanor, even though Tokimitsu is unbelievably strong, so the two will be marking each other. Seeing Nagi yearn to grow stronger, Isagi puts Nagi in charge of Rin, leaving Bashira to Isagi. Kicking off, Bashira has possession, trying to lose Isagi with one of his classic feints. But is surprised to see Isagi read his moves, noting that Isagi is watching the field and positioning himself to force Bashira into an unfair matchup. Attempting to run past Isagi, Bashira is caught off guard, as Baru is now helping Isagi wrestle over possession. Seeing that Tokimitsu is now open, Bashira passes to him, but is intercepted by Isagi, who had foreseen everything. Realizing that Baru and Isagi are one-upping each other, Bashira helplessly watches as Isagi's team goes on the offensive. Punting the ball to Nagi, we see Rin position himself perfectly to lock down Nagi's weapons. If Nagi were to kick it over Rin, Rin would arrive at the ball first, but if Nagi attempts to trap and dribble the ball, Rin would simply intercept and press Nagi further. Spotting Chigiri approaching, Nagi lodges it to Chigiri, all whilst Ryu is closing in. Speeding up, Chigiri is able to dribble past Rin and Ryu, scoring the first goal of the match. With possession of the ball, Bashira once again faces Isagi, all whilst Isagi notes down everyone's positions. Seeing no possible route for Bashira, Isagi is amazed at Bashira no-look pass to Ryu, who is able to reach it before Chigiri. Seeing Tokimitsu open, Ryu kicks it to him, who monstrously out-wrestles Baru. Seeing Rin about to strike the ball, Nagi attempts to slide tackle him, but is tricked, as Rin fakes the kick. Seeing Nagi fall, Chigiri rushes to help defend, but is tricked too, leaving Isagi as the sole defender. Realizing Rin has control over the field, Isagi rushes Rin, only for him to evade and score. Analyzing Rin's plays, Isagi realizes that he is the only one who can keep up with Rin's mastery over the field. With Chigiri having possession of the ball, Isagi positions himself in the open, allowing Chigiri to kick to him. But Rin intercepts, passing it off to Bashira. Wanting to make up for his miscalculation, Isagi is further tricked, as Bashira kicks it high up towards Ryu, having a plan in mind. Having figured it out, Ryu leaps into the air, intercepting with his vertical and scoring. Completely fired up, based off what he's seen, Nagi decides to take matters into his own hands. Positioning himself in Isagi's field of view, Nagi confronts Rin, who's planning to intercept his goal. Evolving, Nagi fakes a strike, allowing Nagi to follow up with a goal, with no defenders able to object. Following Anri, we see her mesmerized with Nagi's new double fake technique, but she is interrupted by Ego. Calling Anri's excitement uncalled for, Ego explains that athletes that continue to develop techniques and hone their craft are bound to bypass the norm, exceeding what is conventional, and that the players should strive to develop formulas to recreate these techniques. Celebrating their Nagi's goal, Isagi declares that with the help of Nagi, they'll be able to surpass Rin, but in order to become the best, he must defeat Rin alone. Whilst Bashira watches the monsters play, we see Isagi continue to plan out countermeasures for Rin, stating that if they can evenly match Rin's outworldly techniques, they'll have a chance. Tired of those below him struggling, Rin declares that if they want to play on the same team as him, they'll have to keep up with his movements. With Rin's team fired up, Rin kicks off, as Isagi teams run to their marks. With Rin passing to Tokimitsu, Baru is thrown off, as Rin's having repositioned, Rin openly receives the ball, which Isagi had observed, but Rin swiftly lodges it towards Ryu. Accepting the pass, Ryu controls. With no option, Ryu is forced to pass back to Rin. Calling Nagi to mark Rin, Isagi follows behind, wondering if Rin will pass to Bashira, or pull off a fake. With Nagi pressing Rin, Rin performs a roulette maneuver around and away from Nagi, but is caught by Isagi, stating that he had read Rin's intentions. Sliding to tackle the ball away, Isagi is stunned, as Rin declares that he's too late, having passed it to Bashira. Accepting the offer, Bashira follows up by scoring, all whilst Isagi thinks about Rin's control of the field. Realizing that Rin had not only assessed his own team's strengths and weaknesses, but with his own skills, he was able to force his teammates to evolve. Wondering if they can defeat this newly awakened Rin, the three reasons that there is still a chance to overthrow Rin, all whilst Baru stares down the field. Kicking off, Isagi notices that Rin is pressing forward, allowing him to trust in Shigiri's speed. Passing Ryu, Shigiri chooses to pass, avoiding a confrontation with Rin. With Isagi observing Nagi marked with Tokimitsu, Isagi watches Bachira's movements, waiting for the perfect time to lose him. But whilst awaiting a pass from Nagi, Isagi realizes that Rin had read his moves, and is now wrestling for possession of the ball. Just then, like a lion hunting for his prey, Baru emerges, stealing the ball from Isagi and catching Rin off guard. Due to Baru's unorthodox play, Rin was unable to consider such a play, which allowed Baru to score, making it 3-all. Taunting Rin, Baru beckons Rin to read his moves, which gives Isagi an idea of how to defeat Rin. With Shigiri marking Rin, Rin passes to Bashira, who welcomes Isagi's challenge. Realizing that Isagi is keeping a safe distance from his dribbles, Bashira realizes that Shigiri is approaching, which means Rin should be open. Sadly, Isagi anticipates this, running to mark Rin, and forcing Bashira to drive past Shigiri. As Isagi runs to intercept, Bashira is able to squeeze past, but is caught by Baru, who devours the three, and rushes towards the goal. Applying his chop feint, to bypass Tokimitsu, Baru loses possession. Seeing Rin and Isagi possess monster-like tendencies, Bashira grows ecstatic, believing to have found people like him, but is stunned when he realizes that those two monsters are in a completely higher plane than where Bashira is. As Shigiri continues to press Rin's plays, Isagi attempts to rebuild his thought process, but is too slow to realize that Tokimitsu is far more capable than expected. Forced to foul, Shigiri is able to prevent Rin and Tokimitsu's chemical reaction from spiraling out of control, but he gives Rin a penalty kick. As Isagi ponders on whether Rin will pass or score, Rin makes the ball vanish, stating that Isagi's analysis of him is flawed, as his ego would never choose to pass the ball. On the side, Bashira questions how he'll catch up to these monsters if he continues to pass. Blaming himself for not picking up on Tokimitsu's potential, and not anticipating Rin's ego, Isagi realizes that Rin had chosen to shoot, because Isagi himself was who Rin was facing. With the score now 4-3 in favor of Rin, Isagi begins to formulate a plan, as he kicks off. Tagging behind Baru, Baru believes Isagi wants to pass, so Baru attempts to run past Tokimitsu, but is pissed when Tokimitsu keeps up with his movements. Using Baru as a decoy, Isagi presses on, but is thwarted by Bashira. Seeing Rin and Nagi close in, Isagi chooses to launch the ball towards Shigiri, prompting everyone to run after it. Using the ball and crowd as a distraction, Isagi leaves Rin's vision, heading straight towards the goal. Seeing Isagi open, Shigiri passes to him. As Isagi attempts to strike, Rin barely catches up, stopping Isagi from following through, but this was what Isagi had waited for. Wrestling Rin, Isagi allows the ball to bounce behind him, only for Isagi to strike it with the back of his foot, scoring. Tying the game, Isagi reveals that the play was a gamble, as he had relied on the fact that Rin. Digging deep, Bashira searches for the reason he is not able to keep up, all whilst Rin kicks off. As Baru wrestles Tokimitsu for the ball, Chigiri helps double-team, but Tokimitsu is able to pass to Rin. Attempting to intercept, Isagi barely misses, as Rin lodges a high ball towards Ryu. Marked by Nagi, Ryu is able to gain possession, looking for someone to pass to. Spotting Bashira, Ryu passes, as Bashira begins to overthink how he can help. Lost in a daze, Bashira loses possession, as he chases after the ball. Chatting with Nagi, Bashira comes to the realization that, at his current state, even if Rin's team loses, Isagi will most likely not pick Bashira. Seeing Baru and Isagi surpass their limits, Bashira reaches out to them, wanting to not be left behind. Realizing that he had been suppressing his own ego, Bashira attempts a steal from behind, but Isagi evades, passing the ball off to Chigiri. In tandem with Nagi, Chigiri is able to get the ball to Isagi, who directs the ball towards the corner of the goal. Just then Rin intercepts, allowing the ball to fall into Bashira's possession. Switching to attack, Bashira notices the monster appear, as it beckons him to pass to his teammates. Standing firm, Bashira realizes that he had been suppressing his ego all this time, and it's about time he breaks this curse. Nutmegging Isagi and Chigiri, and crossing Baru, Bashira forces Baru, Nagi and Chigiri to surround him. Seeing no way out, Bashira is tempted to pass to Rin, but knows that there is another option. Bringing the ball up, Bashira maneuvers his limbs in an unorthodox manner, flinging the ball over the defenders, and passing by with ease. Breaking free, Bashira bids the monster farewell, as he states that he'll be reborn with this goal. Having read Bashira's ego, Isagi intercepts his goal, officially surpassing Rin, as Rin could have never anticipated Bashira's growth. As the ball randomly flies into the air, it unfortunately lands in front of Rin, who strikes the ball, winning the game. Seeing Isagi defeated, Bashira states that he no longer needs Isagi, and that he can finally fight alone. Just then Rin silences everyone, as he states that he'll be the one to pick their new member. Knowing that Isagi was able to outwit him, Rin states that Isagi will join their team, so Rin can devour him. Slumped, Isagi thinks about the reason for his loss, blaming his luck, as no one could have predicted where the ball would land after he blocked Bashira's goal. Reluctantly following Rin's team, Isagi attempts to comfort his team, but they all promise to catch up to Isagi, and that there are no hard feelings. Greeting the Ryu and Tokimitsu, Isagi is glad to hear that the two are happy to have Isagi on board, as they were impressed by his plays. Chatting with Bashira, Isagi notices Bashira has changed, as he's now more confident in himself, able to play alone and not rely on others. Turning to Rin, Isagi demands to know why he had lost, which Rin states that it was luck and nothing more. Interrupted by Ego, Ego congratulates the five for completing the test, and rewards them by answering Isagi's question about luck. Using the analogy of being pooped on by birds, Ego states that at first it may seem coincidental and inevitable, but he asks what if a person never went towards the birds. Applying this to their recent game, we see Rin had actually rushed towards Isagi, whilst everyone stood by and watched Bashira take the shot. It was because of that decision that Rin was able to capitalize on the lucky rebound. If Rin had not chased after Isagi, overall it was because of Rin's split decision-making and game sense which allowed him to capitalize on his luck. Now knowing that Rin still is more experienced than him, Isagi is reignited, as he adds luck to his game plan. Having successfully completed their second round, Ego announces a third round, where they'll be pitted up against the world's 5 best players, tomorrow. The 5 best are Leonardo Luna from Spain, Adam Blake from England, Pablo Cabassos from Argentina, Dada Silva from Brazil and Julian Loki from France. Later that day, we see Rin stretching to cool down, but he notices Isagi joining in, claiming that he will catch up to Rin. Following his stretches, Isagi asks about Rin's relationship with his brother, which Rin states that it's an awkward relationship until he defeats him. Attempting to mimic Rin's crazy stances, Isagi falls over, which ends his time with Rin. As the day arrives, we see the 5 superstars speaking English. As Dada mocks Isagi and his members, Rin steps in, showing off his English. Before Rin and Dada get into a fight, Leonardo steps in, breaking them up. Kicking off, Bashira shows off his newly developed ego, passing Pablo, who seems to not even be trying. When Isagi calls for the ball, Bashira declines, refusing to assist boring plays. Wanting to match up with Bashira, we see Loki dart in front of Isagi, which give Bashira the chance to kick the ball past the two, where Rin is lying in wait, only to score. Having devoured Bashira and Isagi's chemical reaction, Rin is able to ascend what is normally possible, now that Isagi is here. With the world stars kicking off, we see Loki take on Isagi. Knowing that Isagi is exposed, Loki vanishes, having dashed past Isagi. Accelerating further, Loki zips past Bashira, whilst leaving Aryu and Tokimitsu helplessly watching. When Rin attempts to cut Loki off with possession, Rin stands off against Loki, but gets distracted, allowing Leonardo to steal from behind. Passing it to Pablo, Isagi and Bashira are shocked to see Pablo whip the ball past them and into the air. As Aryu leaps up, he's outmatched by Dada, who knocks it in Tokimitsu's direction. Seeing an opportunity, Tokimitsu is manhandled, as Adam runs him over, scoring. As Isagi's members are clearly outmatched, they are all helpless to watch the World Stars score, with everyone giving in, but Rin. Happy to see Rin's resolve, Leonardo personally shows off their disparity, nutmegging Rin and ending the match. Cutting to Ego, we see sponsors to the BlueLock project, unsatisfied with his results, but Ego claims that it's about time he shows off BlueLock's specimens. Back at their dorm, the team talks about the gap between them and the world's best, but even though they have lost, they still feel they can catch up. Isagi personally thinks about Rin's potential, wanting to chase after and defeat Rin for himself. Passing time, the gang attempt to improve their English skills, turning to Rin, who becomes annoyed, having to tutor his hopeless teammates. Just then, the second selection has concluded, and Ego asks for the 35 remaining participants to head to the designated area. Knowing that the people that survived are just as strong as them, Isagi grows nervous, as his team is announced as the first team to have passed the second selection. Up next, Isagi is happy to see Nagi, Baru and Shigiri pass, having finished second. As the next 4 teams are announced, Isagi is happy to see some familiar faces, but is still waiting to see Reo and Kunigami. As the final team reveal themselves, Reo is among them but Kunigami is. Questioning Reo on Kunigami's disappearance, Isagi refuses to believe that Kunigami was easily defeated. But Shido Ryusei, the man that eliminated him, states that picking a fight with Isagi, Shido is interrupted, as Ego asks for everyone's attention. Stating that they all had a chance to face the World Stars, their next goal is to face Japan's under-20 team, in order to show off BlueLock's growth. If they manage, they'll become representatives for Japan. Additionally, Itachi Sei, Rin's older brother, will be playing against them. The season ends, as Kunigami painfully walks down the loser's hallway, all whilst the remaining 35 players set their goals on becoming Japan's representatives. Thanks for watching, subscribe,